Good evening, everyone. I hope you all had a safe, fun, and relaxing weekend. Guess what today is? Guessed it right. It is Monday again, and here I am again, your host, Patricia Bryan, on Legal Talk with Patricia Bryan. And I just want to take this opportunity, as I usually do, to mention if anyone may have passed away that I was aware of. I want to mention Mrs. Georgette Ebanks, who I understand was a pioneer in women's rights activism for voting rights for women. And sympathies and condolences to Mrs. Ebanks' family and loved ones, and also to everyone else who has lost a family member recently and or in this month. I also want to remind you all, listeners and viewers, to find a nonprofit organization of your choice and volunteer or donate. Yes, donate means to donate some funds and volunteer your time. Don't forget to check your court dates by calling the court's office or checking their judicial website online. You don't want to incur any additional charges for failing to appear or not attending court. In regards to this month's activism for domestic violence, I wanted to share that I had the opportunity yesterday to take part in the Silent Witness March. That was yesterday, Thursday, at 3 from GAB onto Central Town, Georgetown, for the very first time ever I took part. I had been off island for a few years and I had never taken part. So actually being in the march was quite an experience, I must tell you. I strongly want to ask as many of you as possible to make a very conscious effort to take part in the march starting next year. It appears as though just marching through the capital streets to support victims, but I must tell you, being a part of the process is an entirely different experience, everyone. I would like to encourage employers to allow employees who want to take part in the march some time off to do so. It looks good for your company, plus it shows support for this cause, domestic violence awareness for the month of October, in addition to my other cause, bullying, harassment, discrimination on the job, in schools, or anywhere. And also, of course, Breast Cancer Awareness Month. Lots going on in October. Domestic violence is a crippling, disabling, and permanently damaging situation to be in for anyone, especially for the adult victims. And primarily, it is women that go through these issues, but more so for children who are often witnessing to the incidents of domestic violence or domestic abuse of any type. You know, there could be emotional, psychological, physical, verbal, financial, that sort of thing between domestic persons in terms of family members, husbands, wives, same-sex, whatever you want to call it, same-sex partners, as long as it's a domestic situation, children, parents, that sort of thing. But it is something that we need to have zero tolerance for. There was a dance group at the end of the march in the what we fondly know as the town hall in Cayman, now the Constitution Hall, which is a rightful name, whoever chose that name, I love it. The dance group by Lamos Dance Studio. Yes, I'm calling you guys out, I hope you don't mind. Very creative and touching ensemble you ladies put on. I mean, it really touched me. I myself used to be a creative dancer. Yes, what else have I done, right? One of my all-time favorite movies, some of you may remember, Flashdance, was about a creative dancer and who experienced somber, passive domestic situations. So to see the dance ensemble put on there with the young ladies from various ages, it was very creative, touching, and it left a lot to think about, especially with the music that was included with the prose. And As a victim of domestic abuse myself in my younger adult years, I know the effects. Gain awareness, people, please. Please gain awareness. I know, the Young Business Professional Women's Club, the Business Professional Women's Club, they are the organizations that put together to put this awareness together yesterday. I just want to tell everyone that it is admirable, and thanks to the Cayman Islands government for supporting this. This is not only just about physical; it's about different aspects. Again, I want to say the Cayman Islands needs to come up to standard with many other jurisdictions and in compliance with international standards and bodies with certain areas of societal issues by enacting direct legislation for some matters. Not only some legislation falling over to others or falling over to other incidents. We need direct legislation for certain things. And I look forward to the government reviewing this, whether it'll be under this administration or the next administration. The march yesterday was not long. We did have a slight overcast. A small reception after was not long either. But I can tell you it was well put together and impactful. It was great to see the members of government who were in attendance. And I'll give pardon for the members and the opposition who were not there. I appreciate they were either busy or off island, but for who was on island, it would have been great for everyone to pull together. So next time, guys who are on island, mark your calendars, please. Attendance shows solidarity for causes which affect us all as residents of the Cayman Islands. Miss Annie Moulton, it was great seeing you. I know you may not remember me, but it was great to see you. It was great to hear you give your speech. And as an icon of this cause, you set the precedent there for being in attendance and everyone listening to you speak. So thank you for that. And to all who put together the march again and the ceremony, you did well, every single one of you. BPW ladies, the young BPW ladies, I can't remember the other organization right now. Please don't kill me. I just want to say thank you. And I want to take the time to say this. I had someone tell me last night that they hope I would not run for public office. I know this isn't the topic of the show, but I need to get this out there before. They hope I would not run for public office because I laugh and grin too much. That's what I was told. That they don't want no politician who laughs too much. They want a serious politician. So do you know what I replied to that person? I said, I have a beautiful smile and I am nervous in front of the camera, so I smile and laugh. It is just simply who I am. I also told the person if they believe if I were a politician, I would laugh as I do, then they do not know me after all. Everyone, I am not, nor do I intend to run for public office, not at this time if I am honest. But if I ever did, I know when to grin, smile, and laugh, and I know when to be serious. So for that person that sent me that message last night, I hope you listen to this show and you can take it all in. Today's topic is one for very, very serious discussion, a very serious face of mine. And you'll get to hear that. So moving on, another thing I wanted to address is this show. I've had many people insinuating or implying how this show came about and who's backing this show. I can tell you honestly, uninhibitedly, this show is only about a show put together and being backed by Patricia Bryan. No one knew I was putting on this show until I came to the studio to get some information. No one is financially backing the show besides me. And in fact, if there is anyone who wants to advertise and or sponsor the show, please feel free to reach out and support the show in that area, because this show was intended to be about the people, for the people, and to educate and inform the people. and by people, the residents of the Cayman Islands and wherever these airwaves extend to. So I just want to put that out there again to anyone. And if you feel you want to support the show, of course, you're free to support it. Now, to listeners and viewers, feel comfortable to reach out if you want to talk about any issues. Everything is confidential when you talk to me or send it to me, especially names and places of yourselves and any parties involved. Unless you specifically say otherwise, I will try my best to direct you to the right place or assist you within the scope of however I can. However, I do not, and I repeat, I do not give legal advice. I am not a lawyer. Again, I do not give legal advice and I am not a lawyer. That is why I have lawyers guesting on the show to give legal and professional advice, everyone. There are also two free legal clinics to contact for free legal advice, which is the Legal Befrienders Clinic and the Cayman Islands Legal Assistance Clinic. Cayman Islands Legal Assistance Clinic does appointments. The Legal Befrienders Club does not do appointments, they do walk-ins and call-ins. And if you need their information, you can reach out to me for that, or you can Google it. Lastly, I am not, guys, I am not the whistleblower. Not in the real meaning. Cayman Mara Road and the Cold Hard Truth do a fantastic job of taking that on, right? And bring into existence an immeasurable difference in the islands by doing so. So you want whistleblowing, you want exposure of certain situations and persons. There's already a talk show that's doing a great job at that, and leave the baton over there. Today's topic, of course, is one that has been in advocacy for me from as far back as, I would say, 2000. Do you believe that? 2000 and 2023, 23 years later. I want to discuss the landlord and tenant laws in Cayman. The two pieces of legislation that are authority for landlord and tenant issues. And landlord and tenant, what is now called an Act of 1998 revision, and the residential tenancies amendment bill of 2023. These are the two areas of landlord and tenant issues that I want to discuss today. I know many people have been talking to me about these issues for quite a long time, and I have wanted to discuss these issues for weeks now. And now is the time, I feel. Someone sent me some information earlier this week that had my head top very hot to think how absurd this landlord and tenant issue is in the Cayman Islands. I mean, it's unbelievable, absolutely unbelievable. So when you have landlords doing certain things to tenants, I call it predatory, right? It's a topic that we can't hide anymore. I mean, granted, whoever don't want to talk about it, I will talk about it. Okay. The act of landlord and tenant 1998 revision was passed, and the document is, let me see, the document is 14 pages long. This is basically the act that is in place right now, 14 pages long, compared to what was passed in 2009, which is, let me tell you how long this one is, 46 pages long, guys. So you see how at the time, I understand it was passed under what I believe was the UDP administration at that time. I believe Mr. Bush was the premier at that time, and I understand it was also voted on and passed unanimously or with little resistance by any other members. So that was encouraging to hear. This topic was so vital to discuss. I was not able to fully confirm this by the time of recording. So, however, the act, not a bill, it is an act, has been passed and was sitting for approximately 14 years, guys, from 2009. It was just not enforced. So, me with my fast self, as us Caymanians like to say, fast self, brought it to the present administration's attention with some recommendations as I've been, fasting with these acts. It was welcomed with open arms and is before the legal drafters for further amendments. I do believe they are considering some of my recommendations. I'm not quite sure exactly how that goes. We did hear the Premier say some months ago in the Parliament House that the government is going to be bringing some new changes to landlord and tenant operations, and these will be them. I cannot emphasize enough that this will make renting an entire new horizon in the Cayman Islands when this is enforced. That's my opinion. The radical change from 14 pages to 46 pages, and I think it will be a bit longer by the time they've made those revisions and modernized it and adding some additions. So I want to say, landlords and tenants, brace yourselves. Those landlords raising exorbitantly, extra, unreasonably high rents, not maintaining properties, predatory renting and fee charging, I can tell you this act is supported by leaders on both sides of the room. I can tell you that. And for tenants who display themselves in such an irresponsible manner by vacating properties and not paying your dues, not paying your rent, not paying your utilities, taking advantage of the system that has evolved in Cayman of including utilities in the rental fees, and you're taking advantage of this by not being considerate of the utilities that you're using, and then vacating the property without proper notice, and we all know some of what's going on both sides of the fence with landlord and tenant issues. I recently had someone share an experience with me that for this year already, by December 1st, their rent would have been risen by $550 for 1 year. And I can tell you some of those changes that are coming are going to address that. Some of the changes that I do believe is coming also is something that I know for myself many tenants like to do, and that is move in and then move other tenants in there. And the property is overcrowded. It's addressing where it's doing abnormal wear and tear on the property, and landlords have no recourse. We're going to have a recourse because we're going to have a board, the same way we have a grievance board for the labor department. We're going to have a grievance board for landlord and tenant issues. Everyone, so gear up. There's going to be relief for everyone, and it may not cover every single thing, but I can guarantee you both of these documents are on the parliamentary website for ease to download and review them yourself, so you can see the comparison of how the law, once it's enforced, is going to change. You need to educate yourselves on this. We know many Caymanian families now have that are homeowners, or even they're renting someone's property and they're subleasing a room. That guys, I can tell you that may be illegal, so be careful with that. No, we don't know. Like I said, this paper is before the drafters for amendment, and it will soon be coming out as a paper for public consultation, so everybody will be entitled to give their feedback. before it's actually put into force. So you guys have an opportunity to get this. If you don't know how to find it, get in touch with me, Patricia Bryan, Legal Talk with Patricia Bryan, or my social medias, and I can certainly send you a copy by email or ask your parliamentary guys to get you a copy. I do believe they are all going to familiarize themselves with this. This is to their advantage, actually, because with an election year coming up, not next year, but they're going to start campaigning next year. They are going to be very keen to address these issues for their voters. One topic I want to talk about before I jump right back into the landlord and tenant: developers and their developers in Cayman. You know, something that came to light to me and I was thinking about for quite some time is developers giving back to Cayman, as a manner of speaking. And by that I mean, say for instance, a developer is developing more than 5 units per development. I think some of these units should be reserved for working class tenants or low income tenants, whether they be units within that particular development or the developers, because developers are usually a group of investors that come together and they form a corporation and they put their money in and they develop, whether commercial, professional, business, residential, whatever. And by doing that, they invest their funds and they get returns on those funds, those investments. Here we know we have, again, I love the word predatory market in the Cayman Islands for development. And I think that these developers should be giving back to the Cayman Islands, our people, you know, and put that money behind a separate community, if not within the community, for this category of renters: senior citizens, low income renters, working class renters. For example, in Florida, this is done. Investors and property owners have a tax break for offering certain units within their communities for senior citizens and for low income to moderate income persons, all in the same community. I mean, how much income one has should not restrict one from desiring to live in certain areas that are only developed for wealthy. But if developers can expect to take advantage of the market and value of the Cayman Islands dollars, which we all know how valuable that dollar is, right, without paying taxes for doing so, then make mandatory government that they give back by way of housing to the Caymanian people. Housing is where we, the people and the residents of the Cayman Islands, need the most help right now. And the government cannot, they simply cannot do it all. I know that. Common sense tells me that. Everyone that stops and thinks sensibly would know that. Not without selling our islands any more than we believe has already been done. So we need to let developers know, as there's a Christian song that I like to listen to all the time, says, the Cayman Islands is not for sale. No, sir, no way. And they must invest in the residential needs of this very country they want to make their money in. That new hangar upgrade, I'm diverting a little bit. The investors who use it should have an increase in fees there. It shouldn't have to be us paying for it by an increase in air tickets or taxation. The East-West Arterial, guys, should have investors building and developing, contributing to a fund to pay for the roads, which will also benefit those developers who reside and or purchase, or their renters or purchasers who reside and purchase within their developments. These developers should be contributing to funds to help build their roads. You know, wherever that $8 million concession went to those developers the other day, I don't know, but I hope that they invested some funds into road structure, into the government's road structure. You know, we don't want any what's the word I'm looking for? We don't want any developers to come back and say, hey, I did this and you guys owe me this. But our government should be able to say, hey, we gave you this opportunity to do this. Now you have to show something for, you know, you have to show some incentive, you know, and government can give an incentive to in terms of small, very, very small concessions, not the big what was it the other day, 80 or 800 million concessions that we heard that developer uh, got in West Bay. I don't know too much about that, but I don't want to get into that too deep either. But I believe the government can offer small, not major concessions to developers who invest in residential developments on island and to also invest in local housing development. This means to me affordable rental properties and housing communities, such as seen with Frank Hall Homes. You know, Mr. Hall and family, thank you for all you have done for the Cayman Islands and their people over the years, especially native and generational Caymanians, in building affordable homes. Also, Mr. Kent Biggie Rankin, I know he has passed. He did also, so I want to thank you in memory, Mr. Biggie, and your family over the years for having affordable apartment homes, which housed many Caymanian families on North Sound Road over the years, and for the homes you and your businesses built for Caymanians to purchase, giving Caymanians home ownership opportunities where none would have been possible otherwise. So we need to revise and amend the Developing Planning Acts and all relevant acts. Honorable Premier Panton and ministers, we need that. I know you guys have a lot on your plate, but I'm just giving you something else to add to it, which I imagine you're already aware of. The opposition, I know, would have no qualms about supporting such moves. When I listen to them on their radio show appearances and so forth, they are supportive in the ventures of housing for Caymanians, you know, and knowing that there's a shortage in housing market because we have so many immigrants in the islands now who take up the space of many of those apartments and other housing that uh, native residents would have ordinarily taken up. And then, of course, we know the requirement for permanent residence, where it says that one can, I'm trying to paraphrase here, one can purchase real property or real estate uh, in order to qualify for permanent residence. We need to remove that at a certain level because that markets Caymanians out of the housing market. When we have, and I'm not against immigration, I'm not against immigrants. I have immigrants in my ancestral line. What I'm saying is Cayman is only so big geographically, and we need to first and foremost invest in our people and to make sure that our people are getting priority and first choice for purchases of land and for purchasing of homes. I know I want to commend the Premier for the increase in stamp duty, as was done some weeks ago, but Honorable Premier, I must say, not making this political, separate and apart from that. This is not a political, it's about what's being done for the country. That increase in stamp duty is almost moot, as we like to say in the legal field, because the prices of property for Caymanians to acquire is simply outside of our reach. So we will not be able to take advantage of that stamp duty. So we're back again to renting. So what we need to do is look at the real estate market. I know it's bringing in a lot of revenue for the Cayman Islands government. I can imagine, which I hope is going back into the stamp duty exemptions. But separate and apart from that, we need to have a balance of the value of real estate. And again, it goes back to a recommendation that I made some time ago that people did not like. And that is to geographically marking some areas of the islands for only for Caymanians or locals that are Caymanians or permanent residents to acquire property. We have to do that. It's done in other jurisdictions, and we have to do that. Doesn't mean that a Caymanian can't go and build in South Sound, but it just means that somebody that has an income and can show your income, as you have to do through immigration, you have to show your bank account statements, you have to show your income, where your income comes from. Well, if you're showing over $1 million, you should not be able to acquire property in Newlands or certain areas of Newlands, or in Bordentown or certain areas of Bordentown, or in West Bay or certain areas of West Bay, or in East End or certain areas of East End. It simply should not be that way if you're not a Caymanian. But of course, a Caymanian who may have $1 million, and when I say Caymanian, I mean indigenous and generational Caymanian, right? And I'm sorry to separate this, but we're a small little, we're a small jurisdiction. When you look at it, comprised of the 3 islands, we're small. So that's why I keep saying that. And so I know collectively all of our representatives are on board for these types of movements in terms of having better legislation for landlord and tenant issues, and also finding ways to provide better housing opportunities, whether rental or home ownership, for our Caymanian people, right? And let's bank together. Let's ask the investors to invest, in that east-west arterial bypass first in the meantime, though, right? Because that is needed like yesterday. I was coming down again today, and the traffic was so bad behind a flatbed truck that was towing a bulldozer, and it took forever. The rain, when it starts to rain, it takes forever. Mr. Dart, Mr. Kenneth Dart, can you step forward, sir? We need a second road to the Eastern District side of the island, and you have done so much in terms of development and property acquisition and helping develop the Cayman Islands, even for use of family activities and so forth that benefits the people of the Cayman Islands, that we would all welcome you to your push and support behind helping with the East-West Arterial, getting that report perhaps much faster if the Premier thinks that that is necessary. And maybe you can invest in homes for working class and low-income Caymanians also while you're at it, sir. Now that I have heard the family of Mr. Frank Hall allegedly do not intend to carry on his legacy in terms of more housing communities, would you still want to tell the Frank Hall Homes Corporation thanks for everything they've done for the Cayman Islands? I mean, as I drive through Cayman, many of the communities would not be there without the Hall family and Mr. Begin. I'm sure there's one or two other that I know about and just don't remember. Another thing I want to touch on quickly is a recommendation for the adverse possession paper that is out now for, I think it's still up for public consultation. One thing I recommended with this Adverse Possession Act is not to abolish it. It definitely needs to be modernized, but I would not abolish it. And I say that because I think, my personal view, is that with adverse possession, it could benefit the Cayman Islands government. And by that I mean they could modernize the law and the government take the adverse possession of properties and then turn them over to develop housing communities or rental housing communities, or turn them over in terms of for sale for Caymanians to become home owners or to rent. That way it would not per se come out of the government's pocket as much as it probably would be for the government to start from scratch. So let's take that into consideration, members of the parliament and the opposition, to let's band together to support that cause where the adverse possession is not abolished, but it will more benefit the Cayman Islands government and acquiring the properties that could fall under adverse possession for people otherwise separate and apart, right? So let me get back to the Residential Tenancies Act now. So the Landlord and Tenants Law, 1998 revision, again, like I said, it's only 14 pages long, and it doesn't cover much. It has, it only has 1 to 23 sections, right? Rights of the landlords, cost of distress for payments of rent, delivery of lists for disdain. So it covers for Cayman at that time, it covered pretty decent areas of landlord and tenant issues. And I don't even think I want to get into this too much, because this legislation is so old. Even the new legislation that was enacted the new uh, Residential Tenancies Act is old, because that's about 14 years old. But you know, this one, just they just need to throw this in the garbage. This 1998 revision really needs to throw it in the garbage. Whoever revised the name of it, I'm so proud of you. So this one, so it's a bill to amend the act, and this has lots of amendments here. It touches on mediation, it touches on security deposits, return of security deposit, receipts for rents. You landlords that do not like to give receipts for people's rent when you take it, please start practicing from now. This is going to be a serious issue in this law, because it's called theft. When you take people's money and don't give them a service, or you don't provide proof of taking their money, right? In layman's terms, that's what it is. We talk about the quiet enjoyment of the tenant. To me, that's very big also. Quiet enjoyment of the tenant basically means a tenant's right to live in a place and enjoy it peacefully, not having the neighbors blaring their music and behaving unrowdy and loud and disrespectful, and it affects the other neighbors that are living. So this is something, landlords, you're going to have to enforce, and tenants, you're going to have to get serious about when you're thinking about renting people's places. Of course, we're going to have the grievance. That is very important. So there's going to be, I see people talking about that a lot online, and people approaching me about that. There's going to be a grievance place where you can go. So it won't be, need I say this, it won't be so tedious, such a struggle and a hardship to deal with these landlord and tenant issues as much anymore, because pretty much right now, you know, I hope Mr. Kurt Walton does something different. I feel confident that he will be a whole brand new leadership than the Cayman Islands has ever seen in policing. And I say that with confidence, and I know he won't let me down. But when you have police officers going to people and telling them you have to go to small claims court if a landlord takes your money and doesn't rent you the place or doesn't give you a receipt or whatever, it's called theft. You're taking people's money under false pretense, and they can be charged. So that's why it's going to be a crime if the amendments pass. It's going to be a crime to do so. Landlord not giving sufficient notices to vacate, increasing the rents. There's going to be control about how the rents can be increased, and mind you, if I remember correctly, by how much can be done at any given time and the duration of time. You're going to have to lawfully have contracts, landlord contracts, and give notices. The type of notices you're going to have to give and how you give those notices is not going to be a little WhatsApp, and if you don't pay your utilities, you have to get out. No. I ask all of you to get yourself prepared for this legislation, because it is coming. The government is tired of hearing, they don't say it, so I'm going to say it for them. When I say the government, I mean everyone that's in there right now, opposition or the government, the administration, they're tired. They can't say it, or maybe they can and won't, and they don't. But they are tired. Many of them, I'm not taking anybody's side, because I am neutral here. I don't care who in the government and what they're doing. But when it comes to an issue like this, I'm going to give any side or anyone the kudos that they deserve to get. And I can tell you, the government is tired of these issues happening in this little small country. It should not be happening. And they're getting relief put in place. It may not be 100%, but they're getting relief put in place. It sounds scary. It sounds scary when you think about what's going to happen. Yes. We're going to have the ombudsman handle the mediation. It's going to be a very easy process, just as easy as it was it is to go and file a labor grievances, that even the employers are scared now that they when they're getting taken advantage of, they don't they don't have anything to say. They get taken advantage of because it's such an easy process for employees to go and complain. It wasn't easy for me, I can tell you that, but that's another story for another another show. Yes, this new law, this new act, I need to get used to that word. Like I said, we are finally going to have a grievance place to air grievances. um, Settlements, obligations under tenancy agreements. Again, we're going to hear about the agreements. You're going to start familiarizing yourself with agreements, security deposits and how those are used, and the return of those deposits, how long it takes to send those back to 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 uh, to residents, renters, landlords, to keep records. If you don't keep your records, landlords, it seems like it's going to become a criminal offense for you not to keep records. You have to know how much money you take from people, how much money you're taking from renters, when you've taken it, and what you've done with it. You're going to have to put it in. Anyway, it's going to be, if the amendments pass, it's going to be illegal to not keep proper records, landlords. Of course, you know, we know with the Sexual Harassment Act bill that's out now, we need to consider landlords and tenants, those types of behaviors in the residences when you rent, because there's a lot of complaints about landlords trying to obtain certain favors for the payment of rent. The conditions of your properties, landlords, is going to be an issue. The amount of residents inhabiting your properties is going to be an issue. So tenants, listen to that also. Maintenance of your property, landlord's right to enter. You can't just go in and landlords, the landlords here in Cayman are getting away with so much for such a small little jurisdiction. And renters, you need to understand, if you're renting, you can't just vacate people's property. Landlords give a contract, even if you write it by hand. You sign and the renters sign. And that's why the grievance, we're going to have well, not we, but the government is going to have a grievance, because people find it hard. Number one, people find it hard to get these small plaints together to file in small claims court. The courts cannot give you legal advice. 2 free legal clinics is not sufficient unless they open their hours for more time. They're not sufficient to advise people on how to do small plaints. And the handbook is not as simple as the handbook was made to be. So people are still finding it hard in order to submit small claims plaint to the small claims court to get legal action as a tenant or a landlord. It's going to be much more user-friendly when we have the grievance. And I do believe this legislation is coming out like very fast, because there needs to be relief. Landlords are having to pay huge amounts of money to CUC and the Water Authority because tenants vacate with no notice. They give them time to pay their deposits, and then they vacate without finishing paying their deposit and without paying their utilities, and leave the landlords in a hole. And some of these landlords have given these renters chances and opportunities. I've seen where landlords didn't want to rent to people with houses. I'm going to touch on NAU, and I know Minister Andre Ebanks is working on this very hard. NAU, we need to have a better turnaround period for helping with assistance for rent. The 60, 90, and 100, 120 days is why landlords do not want to help with rental. They do not want to take NAU. And I know the minister is very aware of this, and he has a big heart. He has a big heart, and he's working hard to revamp NAU to the, what is it going to be, the financial needs assessment or financial needs unit, something. But we need a quicker turnaround time. I do know he's working hard on that. Um, so more landlords will be encouraged to accept NAU's assistance to help the needy and senior citizens. But yes, we can't just expect to have, with the small market that Cayman has, if you're jumping for, and let me tell you, the other thing I think is coming out in the legislation is landlord references. I think that may be mandatory, guys. So you can't just jump from landlord to landlord and not have a reference to say, oh, I was staying at Patricia Bryan's place and I was there for 30 days. If you weren't staying there, you need to show proof. And that's going to throw you out of the market if you don't conduct yourselves responsibly as tenants. So we want landlord and tenants reform. We want new and modernized legislation, landlords and tenants, whether Caymanians, investors, or permanent residents. We need to be responsible with these, with our processes in order to take advantage of this. And the other thing, planning. Planning, I've seen properties where they're making, oh my gosh, I shouldn't even get into that. Anyway, back to the legislation for residential tenancies. Termination, notice of termination in writing, I just discussed that. Notice before forfeiture, that means the landlord cannot just take your money and do nilly-willy with it what they want to do. They have to give you sufficient notice and let you know specifically in details why they're going to forfeit or make a claim against your deposit or your monies at holding. One thing Florida just did is change the law. I think it came in effect this month, that in place of a deposit, a landlord can take a non-refundable fee of a lesser amount in place of a deposit. That's one thing Florida has just put in place, and that may be something that our government can put in the amendments by the time they're finished. So if you don't have the $1,500 that may need to be paid at the same time you're paying the rent, the landlord could have the option of saying, you know what, let me take half of that 15 as a deposit, but it's half of that 1,500 that would be the full 1,500 of a deposit. Let me take half of that, but this is non-refundable. That way, I wouldn't have to come up with the whole $1,500 for the first month's rent, and I wouldn't have to come up with the whole $1,500 for the deposit. I could give my first month's rent of $1,500 and half of that as a non-refundable fee, right? So that is something. We have notice before forfeiture, unlawful acts, notice of termination by tenant on grounds of breach of the tenancy agreement. There's a lot of, the methods of service. The methods of service means the types of ways that notices can be served on either mostly it's on the tenants, but it's the same concept for tenants who want to serve on the landlord. That's being revised and modernized, I think, to include, you can do so by email. I doubt that it's possible by WhatsApp, because I've seen a lot of WhatsApp messages where landlords are giving notices. I mean, I've had someone say to me the other day, you know, we've paid all of our rents. Everybody's paid their rents. Everybody's paid their utilities, and our utilities still got cut off. And we believe that the landlord and her husband are going through a divorce, and that could be why our utilities weren't paid. But that is against the law. That is against the law, landlords. I don't care what you're going through in your own personal life. You take a person's money, you take your renter's money, and then you want to get upset with them if they say something about it and tell them you want them out of your place. That is inhumane. That is, listen, that's breaching the constitutional rights of people that lives in the Cayman Islands, the human rights of the Cayman Islands. It's breaching the landlords and tenant law. This is actually in place now. It's just not enforced. So when your landlord starts to listen, everyone, I want to implore you who listens to the show, make notes. Start making your notes. Start making sure you give everything in a contract. And let me tell you the other thing about these landlord contracts. They're not cut in stone. So if there's something that you see in the contract that may not be, you can negotiate with your landlord. You can negotiate with your landlord and say, you know, X, Y, Z. There's going to be what? Let me tell you one thing that I was suggesting to the government. I don't know if they took this recommendation. Was for our armed forces and members of law enforcement and what would we call these guys now? Law enforcement, which would be CBC, Customs and Border Control, Immigration, Police, or armed forces offshore and on ground, that they shouldn't have to pay lease breaking fees if they're being transferred from, one side of the island or one island to the next and those sort of things. They should be exempt from, I don't know if they took that recommendation, but I hope so. That's done in Florida. And I know Florida and the Cayman Islands are two different jurisdictions, but you know, uh, that's a good thing to keep in mind. There's not much in this legislation that is not already here that will change. I can tell you, as I said, it is a major upgrade from the previous legislation in 1998. I am so glad. The prescribed fee for disputes applications, landlords to show proof of ownership or property. Oh, the other thing, yes, I think this is something that's going to be in there. You landlords that like to rent places to residents, renters, and the property may not be your own. We're not only talking about a major incident that everybody knows about that was in the news. We're also talking about other landlords that are doing this. Renting properties that do not belong to them. Maybe it was left for a family member and another family member is living there and think, okay, that was my grandmother, so I can rent these rooms. No. If you are think you have the authority to rent a property to someone, you more than likely, if the amendments are accepted, will have to show that you are the owner of that property, or you have a legal binding document that gives you the right to rent and manage that property. I know property management companies, oh my gosh, they charge a high amount of rent to manage properties. And I know they have legal rights, so all they have to do is just show you their letter, right? But what about private property owners? So that's something to consider also. Landlords, if you're going to start renting properties, that may be in the new amendments. And like I said, I want to implore many of you as often as you can. If you're here and you're not even if you are home ownership, I would suggest you get this act and familiarize yourself with it, and know what's coming to protect yourself as a tenant and also as a landlord. I know there's some landlords. I know a particular landlord that said to me the other day, hey, I had this lady staying in my house for 10 years, almost 11 years, and I've been charging her $400, and now I want to increase the rent to 600 because of my increase in lights and there's overnight guests and so forth. And the person was not happy. Actually, I've heard that story about 3 times. The person was not happy. So I want to leave you guys there with these thoughts. There's a lot of other stories I could share. I think I've said enough about these 2 pieces of legislation, but I want to implore again landlords to start getting your properties in order. Start renovating, upgrading, and be mindful of the rents that you're charging, because there's I think there's also going to be a cap on the types of rents you can charge for the types of properties and the locations and that sort of thing. Don't quote me on that, because I think the last I heard, there wasn't a keenness on trying to tell people how much to ask for their places. But when we have people that are living in places, which is just across here from DMS Studios, these little rooms, and I have videos of some of those rooms, The properties are deplorable. They need immense renovations. Um, that's unacceptable. That's inhumane. It is inhumane for a jurisdiction in the Cayman Islands. And this is not just foreign landlords or landlords that are not original Caymanians. Some Caymanians, some I have seen, not too many, are doing this to people. You know, I just want to implore everybody, get these legislations, familiarize yourself with this, because there are massive changes coming with this legislation once it's enforced, and it's going to be a whole new horizon for landlord tenant issues in Cayman. And this is what we've been crying for. This is what you, the public, has been crying for, and it's about to come. I can't say when, but it is very near, and it's going to be a paper out for public discussion. So you'll be able to give your feedback on that. Take advantage of that feedback. I hope the government can try to put through a way of doing a WhatsApp survey when these papers come out. That way, you know, everybody's on WhatsApp and social media. Um, we need these papers to have that discussion through those forums, because this is technology, and technology has changed the way that people give input and give feedback and surveys. So we hope that they can do that. I'm sure they'll probably, someone will tell them about this show, and they could try to figure out how they can do that, because they do send out, um, you know, government through the government website. The government sends out WhatsApp messages and newsletters, so I'm sure they can send out these surveys by WhatsApp or social media, so people can have better direct contact to give feedback. Ladies and gentlemen, I am over my time. This has been interesting. I think I stole some of my time to discuss this, to give those disclosures at the beginning, but I thought they were necessary. As time goes along, if I feel I have to do another show on landlord and tenant issues, I will do so. And thank you so much again for listening to another episode of Legal Talk with Patricia Bryan. It has been great. I am getting more comfortable behind the mic and in front of the camera, and I will continue to smile and grin for that person who asked me why I smile and grin so much. It's just who I am. It's my personality, and I have a beautiful smile. So thank you, everyone. Have a great evening and a great rest of your week.